What did you want to be when you grew up? Remember when you were little and adults asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Are you? Are you doing that thing? It all seemed so easy back then, didn't it? Like you just daydreamed, you imagined, and you picked something you wanted to be when you were a grown-up and you said it out loud. God, it's got me thinking about all the things I used to say I wanted to be when I grew up. But anyway, now let me ask you a different question. What about now as a grown adult? If I asked you, not what do you want to be when you grow up, but what do you really want? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? How easy would you find it to answer now? Now, please excuse my assumption, people, but I'm going to go as broadly as to say I already know the answer. I don't know the answer in terms of what do you really want, what do you want to be, do, or have, but I will take a pretty good guess that I do know the answer as to how easy you'd find it to answer that question. I hope I'm making sense because I've just realised I've said answer. I think you'd find it hard. And the reason that I think I know that is because over the last few years, I have worked with hundreds of women. And it is the exception, not the rule, that can answer the question, what do you really want? Why do we find it so hard to be honest about what we really want? What do you really want? As you are listening to me right now, what's the answer that's jumping into your mind? Not what is expected of you, not what sounds impressive or responsible, or I don't know, not what looks good on paper or keeps everybody else happy, not what you think you should say. What do you want? What do you want in your life? I don't even mean the surface stuff. I mean, like, we all want to fit. There's lots of studies, there's lots of papers, there's lots of books. I can't remember the title of the piece now, but we all have a basic human need to feel loved. We all want to feel secure. We all want to feel successful, whatever that means for you. And I guess that's part of this. What is successful? What do you want? Like on a deeper level, what's the stuff you haven't said out loud? What's the stuff you're not even admitting to yourself? What's the version of your life that if no one else mattered, you would quietly, or maybe not so quietly, go after in a heartbeat? Maybe you've had, I don't know, one of those moments, you hit that goal, you've set this goal, you worked so hard to get there and it was supposed to feel amazing and actually it doesn't. You hear about this all the time, don't you? You hear of people saying, I worked so hard to get to that point and then when I got there, it didn't feel how I thought it was going to feel. Maybe you find yourself actually zoning out or feeling quite heavy and a bit stuck at the moment because actually what you're working on, working with, working towards isn't really what you want. Or maybe something big has happened in your life. Maybe negative, maybe positive, but it's got you wondering. Maybe there's been a pivotal moment for you which has suddenly had you wondering, questioning, is this actually the life I want? Now, my personal view is that we all know what we want, even if we don't know. Let me explain what I mean. I think we all know what we want, but we don't say it out loud. And I tell you how I know that. Because we know what we don't want. And most of the time, that is easier to answer. But it's equally, very often, as hard to admit to. Because if we start being honest and admitting to what we don't want, that could mean we've got to do something about it. That would potentially mean we are acknowledging and admitting we're not happy with where we're at. And it would potentially bring feelings of ungratefulness, is that word. That's a whole other level of honesty. But it is a question that more people find easier to answer than, what do I want? What do you really want? It isn't always that you don't know. Sometimes you do know. But the fear, the responsibility, the years of putting everyone else first, the years of everything you've worked for is burying any possibility of you admitting to what you really want. And so instead, the voice, that little daydreamer voice, that little kid that had all these goals and plans is getting quieter and quieter until one day it's so hard to hear you're not even sure it's there anymore. And instead you start saying things like, it's too late. At my age, I can't do that. I can't make that change. It would be too big an impact on everybody else. I should just be grateful. It's totally unrealistic. I've worked way too hard to change everything now. But we do have this little voice. So that little voice, let's call it the little child voice, and this isn't an inner child session. It does get poked and it gets prodded every so often, doesn't it? It gets triggered maybe by what you see of what others are up to, triggered by events around you, triggered by the book that you read that's just lit a fire again. It's there. It's trying to come back. Now, look, maybe you know my story, and I'm going to share it again very briefly, because this isn't just coming to me through coaching insight. This is coming from a place of living this, and not just living it once or twice, but the first really, really good example for me of me living this, what do I actually want for my life, was, and as I said, maybe you know the story, so I'm going to give you the brief version. There was I hit a point in my life. We'd been through several years of significant challenges. My husband lost both of his parents in less than 12 months. And the lead up to that had been several years of supporting the family through that, making very different decisions because of what we were navigating, what we were dealing with, and witnessing the impact that was having on the family, the individuals that were going through that, really putting into perspective how precious life is. I had my own personal health scare. It was a scare. It wasn't as serious as what we were experiencing around us, but it was another scare. Everything was just kind of coming at us at the same time. So I'd been through a health scare. I was heading for 40 years of age. We'd lost both in-laws in less than 12 months. We felt like everything that life could throw at us was being thrown at us. And actually, God, we hadn't even hit the pandemic at that point, and the pandemic threw more at us. But my first moment came 2018, mid-2018. My father-in-law had passed away. We didn't actually know my mother-in-law was ill at this stage, but I was kind of looking at my life. We'd got married. We'd been married for 3 years, I think, at this point. And life was good, right? I mean, I want to be really clear. The life that I was living, the life that we'd created, was good by most people's standards. Good salary, lovely house, nice car on the road, nice holidays. I had nice clothes, not that nice clothes. I don't really buy stuff like that. Handbags, the material stuff was all there. I was in a happy marriage. I was, I'd gone through everything I needed to go through to be comfortable with who I was. We were in a good place. I was doing well at work. I was not unhappy. I wasn't falling apart. We were navigating some really challenging stuff on the wider family front. And that was absolutely getting me asking different questions than I'd ever asked before. For someone who had always done what was seen to be the right things, I'd built the successful corporate career, I'd ticked the boxes, I'd got the mortgage, I'd got the husband, we were living the life most people dreamed of, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I had this sense around me, firstly, that because of what we'd experienced, there had to be more. Is this it? And actually, those were the questions I was asking myself. Is this it? Is this what I'm going to do for the next 20 years? But the realization that my answer to that was, I hope not. The realization that my answer to that was, I think I want more, was terrifying. Because to even imagine that I wanted something more, something different at 42, 43 years of age, the realization, or the imagining that I could change. 25 years in the corporate world, it's all I knew. It felt insane to even consider it myself, let alone to say it out loud. It also felt ungrateful and selfish. Who was I to want more when I had everything I had? Materially, I had my health. On the outside, my life looked better than fine. But the longer I ignored those questions, the louder they were getting, until actually I couldn't ignore them anymore. Now, I didn't blow up my life overnight, okay? And I would never advise anyone to do that. People think that maybe my story was a bit more like, wow, bang, woo. It wasn't like that at all, okay? We didn't blow up life overnight. But what I did was stop pretending that I was fine. Stop pretending that I was okay and this was enough for the duration. And that led to small decisions at first that became bigger decisions, but those small decisions turned into the bigger change decisions. That led to this business, this version of my life, because that was the next stage of asking questions, of admitting what we really wanted. That led to this version of me. Now, I hope that if you are listening to this, if there is any part of you thinking, God, that's me, I want you to know that you are allowed to admit to what you want. If you have questions of, is this it? If you have questions of, I'm not sure, this is enough. If you have questions of, God, is there anything? There's got to be more to life than this. You are allowed to admit that. Today's episode is simply how to figure out what you really want. Okay? It's a permission slip. It's me saying you're allowed to admit to what you want, because until you do, there is absolutely no chance at all of making it happen. I am not going to blow smoke up your backside with a whole you can do anything message. That's not today's message, although I do think that you can do anything. I just want to help you if you are stuck and not being honest with yourself, let alone anybody else. If you don't know how to work out what you actually do want, or you think you don't know what you do want. Because I do believe we all deserve to dream as a starting point. So let's just get really practical for a moment. This is big stuff, okay? And I'm squeezing this into like a 20-25 minute episode. How do you start figuring out what you really want when that feels terrifying, when you might feel a bit disconnected from it, when you're not really sure you're allowed to? Okay, so here's some really simple questions you could start with. Grab that notebook, get that pen, and here's what I want you to write down. If nobody would judge me, what would I want? And actually, one of the things I always say to people when we're doing this is I would encourage you to have a material list and a non-material list. What's the right word for that? The list of like what you would like life to look like. You're allowed to have the list of, the handbags, the shoes, the holiday, all of that stuff too. But what would you admit to wanting in terms of being, doing, having, if no one was going to judge you for it? If no one got a say except you? If no one was watching? Let go. Here's the second thing I want you to do. I want you to let go of what you should want. In fact, I want you to write down what comes up that you think you should want. Whether that's titles, income goals, lifestyles that don't actually light you up. You do not have to, or maybe I'm going to throw this in the mix right now. Maybe other people's voices are coming up for you in terms of what you should want. A lot of people, let's just call this one out. And this is a really, really assumptive statement I'm about to make as well. But I've met so many people who are living their lives, striving for goals that their parents, the authority figures in their lives, have taught them is what they should go for. Only with the best intentions, let me just be really clear. You do not have to chase anything that doesn't fulfill you. You do not have to achieve other people's goals for them. You do not have to impress people. Let go of what you think you should want. If nobody would judge you, what would you want? Let go of what you think you should want. And ask yourself, what have I loved the most in my life? If, like me, you're in the latter stages of your life and there is a bit of a narrative, a self-talk that's like, I can't change my life now. Bull S, BS, yes you can. I don't swear on this podcast, and this goes on YouTube too. Ask yourself what you've loved the most about life, what you've loved the most in your life. The experiences, the achievements, the moments, the events. Just cast your mind back and really allow yourself to remember when you have been your happiest, when you have felt your most fulfilled. What are the things come up? Because there's probably some messages in there. What did you enjoy? What did you love before life became about achievement and responsibility? And here's a tip that most people wouldn't give you, but I'm going to. Use jealousy as a clue. Everybody talks about you shouldn't be jealous. Right, yeah. It's not a particularly helpful feeling, but actually, if you ask yourself, who are you kind of low-key envious of? Who are you triggered by when you see what they're up to and you have that little voice in your head? Because actually, even comparison, and I don't want you to go down a comparison spiral, but it's telling you something. Why is it making you feel like you should? Is it because you want them? This is the bit about let go of shoulds. But actually, if there is a feeling of envy, not because you want someone's life, but because something about what they are doing, what they are having, is shining a light on something that you have buried in your own, use it as a clue. Fear is what stops most people. Knowing what you want is scary. When you assume, it means you'll have to change everything, or it risks failure, or it could disappoint people. But that doesn't have to be true. Fear is all in our minds. You don't have to change everything. You don't have to put yourself into situations of huge risk of failure. You don't have to disappoint people. You don't have to leap. Right now, all I'm saying is get honest. Listen to yourself. Real courage isn't actually just about running at it, okay? It's not about doing it all right now. It's about being honest with yourself. Quietly, privately. That's actually the first stage of courage. It's about saying to yourself and acknowledging it's not quite it. It's not quite enough. And then being courageous enough to explore what might be. Because until you do that, nothing will ever change. And you won't fulfill whatever it is that you are meant to fulfill or want to fulfill. You are allowed to want something different. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to change your mind. Even if you work really hard to get where you are right now. 25 years I climbed that ladder. I worked my butt off for 25 years. Now, let me be really clear. All of that has helped me be who I am now, be where I am now, do what I do now, the way I do it. But I also had to let go of all of that and acknowledge it was okay if it didn't help me and it didn't add value to it. It was okay to say everything I thought I wanted, everything I've worked towards for 25 years actually isn't where I want to go now. I want to change direction. I want to take this in a new direction. I want to see what I can take with me, but if I can't take any of it, that's okay. That was terrifying. I read something somewhere that says your desires aren't a problem to fix. They are a compass. Deep, right? So start there. Be honest about what you want. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? You're allowed that list too. Start small, start messily, start imperfectly, but start. Start by admitting, what do you want? So the question of today is, what do you really want in life? And the way you figure that out is just by starting with honesty and letting go of what everybody else has got to say on the subject and giving yourself space to just really tap into your own thoughts. Now, as ever, if these are the kinds of questions you're sitting with right now, I promise you, you are not the only one. I've said it already. I've worked with hundreds of women. And when I've asked, so what do you want? What do you want life to look like? It's a big question. They look at me with fear in their eyes because they think they don't know, or because underneath it all they do know, but they're really, really scared of saying it out loud. This is exactly the kind of work we do inside the She Is Courageous Collective. Just recently, we had the most powerful mindset session. We do this on a monthly basis. We had our monthly mindset session. And the output of that was that women are stepping forward. 3, 4, 5 of the members have shared really openly, oh my God. Like one lady said, it's made me cry, acknowledging and admitting what I really want, because the release is so huge. In the collective, we explore these big questions with honesty but safety. There's no pressure, there's no judgment, just real conversations, practical steps, and knowing that there's a courageous community around you to do things differently. So if you are ready to start asking what you really want and actually take steps forward towards it, come join us in the She is Courageous Collective. As ever, the link is in the show notes. You will be in exceptional company. And it's where we make things happen too. But let's start with, what do you really want?